welcome to the second video portfolio that I am going to present. Um, this I'm making this video in response to feedback I received on my first video portfolio. Two of the key points that kind of came across was that the text was a bit hard to read on the transitions, and also the music in the background was a little bit distracting. So the request was, could you do something similar with a voiceover? So that's where we are, and this is what I'm doing. I'm using a project that typically people would use for interviews. The project is a design brief here. It's basically, you can pause and have a look. It's for a San Francisco parking application. Okay. So in the brief, there's a couple of things which are going to guide the progress. It's only a 2-page brief, and you're given between 4 to 8 hours resources to use, which ain't a lot. So I decided to do mostly whiteboard work, a little bit of browser work, and a tiny bit of design work at the end. Split up my time like that. Okay, so very quickly on the process, or I should say actually that this presentation is meant to be 15 minutes. I'll try and get it as short as possible. So the process, I try to understand what's going on from stakeholders with a view to their KPIs to measure the progress. I try to do a little bit of user research, some background research, and then I prototype, design, dev, and test. In this case, it's going to be mostly whiteboard stuff. Okay, at the beginning, I try to understand the project, get in the heads of the people that have the problem. So out of 4 hours, I guess, I spent a lot of time rereading and rereading the brief. I didn't have the luxury of a stakeholder meeting or a kickoff meeting. After I read the brief, I tried to explore it. I do this by restructuring the information, rewriting the problem. I put into a few sections here, such as stakeholders, task of parking, some trends, some goals, the objective of the project, such as to raise support for the client and for the users, and to raise funding. A little bit down there in motives as well. I came out with this notion of trust and community. One of the things in the brief was that there was a lot of fighting between the parking attendants and the motorists, and a solution had to kind of build on that. So I went with these motivations, I guess. Okay, the research. Not much you can do. I gave about an hour to research. The first 30 minutes I went in to try and figure out the background to the problem, to understand it from a multi-stakeholder perspective. I came across a San Francisco County Transport Authority website, which is a page here full of reports, went through a few of them. I found out their motivations are parking, but also congestion and increased footfall to business, etc. I also looked at the International Parking Institute's Emerging Trends report. There's a couple of good statistics there. And finally, I came across through that report an app called SF Park. At this stage, I decided to do a competitive analysis with SF Park, because it's good to kind of get a benchmark on what the standard is and also what the user sentiment is. So I had a quick look at it. There are a few of my points. Things are a little bit hard to see. Pricing was a bit confusing, etc. You can pause and go through it. I also looked at comments from the App Store. Gives an idea of kind of preliminary user research, gives me a bit of focus on where people have issues and what they want addressed. In terms of actual user research, there isn't a whole lot of time. I gave 30 minutes to kind of creating a persona, scenario, story. I used SF Park app. I found a video of a user. She was a journalist. The link is there. These are some of the quotes from her during the video. It was about 5 minutes. Based on that, I was able to create a persona. It's very important to base personas on real people, so I was kind of happy with this. She's a journalist. She needs to get to a location to report on the story. She has to get a parking space. Basically, her job depends on it. After this, I do a context of use, so I have a bit of background on the problem, a bit of background on the person. Alright, how are they going to use the app? This is a structured method, and this is a very informal implementation on a whiteboard. But basically, we're looking at 4 areas: the user, the device, the environment, and the task. task I then broke up into 4 separate tasks. One super task, which is use the app, and 3 subtasks, which is find a location, navigate to that location, and pay for the parking. There's a load of criteria we'd measure these tasks against, such as how critical are they, what's the start point, the output, can you postpone it, what's the frequency and duration, etc. So now I know a fair bit about the problem, a fair bit about the user, a fair bit about the task. Let's get prototyping. So basically 30 minutes was spent thinking about the problem, or some people may call ideation. I came back to my kind of guiding force of trust and community, and I started the first iteration is on car drivers helping each other. So basically when you pay for 4 hours parking, you're basically telling the system that your space should become available within 4 hours. So why not tell other car users this? Sorry, locations will be basically green. The greener they are, the more likely there is this space there. So next iteration was to build this trust between the city and the drivers, so get the officials involved. That's the parking attendants or the traffic wardens. So if they came along, they saw there was a car in a space, they scanned the license plate and said, right, this car is here for 4 hours, they can update the system to tell the other motorists that this space will become available in 4 hours again. No change at all, the same system. Next iteration is based on a bit of user research. The first one was display the other app users, which will again address the likelihood of congestion. So now we can see that there's cars included on the map. So you can see there's a lot of cars in the upper left section and there's no cars in the lower right section. So immediately you can see you should probably go down south or wherever. The next feature is to use red hues to also address the likelihood of availability. So you can see in the top it's very red, so there's a lot of cars up there. So it's not likely you're going to get a space there. Again, down the bottom it's green. Another bit of feedback is to indicate again the size of the number of spaces, so the bigger circles have more spaces. And another notion here was to possibly change what's presented if the app can detect that you're carpooling, to give you a little advantage. So that was the idea I came with. So now it's to actually sketch the app. I used a whiteboard again, 30 minutes, and here is, this one's a bit blurry actually. So this is the opening screen. So you have your logo. For expert users, you have an autocomplete there on, I suppose, places you go to a lot. For novice users, you have the pick a map in the bottom. So let's say you pick the map. So you tap and hold any location and you get your overlays of greens and reds and also the other app users in the location. This will help you select the place. So let's say you select the green in the top corner. So the navigation screen comes up then, and it has a list of directions, and it also has a list of kind of metadata. So you offload a few cognitive resources as you're using the system. As you get closer to where you want to park, the metadata disappears and a bit more contextual information on the location appears. And again, this is based on user research. When you get to where you need to go, it detects whether you've stopped. Perhaps you turn off your engine, the car stops moving, maybe you've gone into one of the locations you're looking for or whatever. And so you pick the amount of time you want to spend, and you basically just buy your parking there and then. And the system will then update how long you're planning on staying there to all the other motorists, give them a bit of a heads up on your parking. And that's it. Park, Pay and Go. I think this is from an app called Pando or something. But that was it. I decided at this stage it still was a little bit rough to raise some funding, so as was described in the brief. So I decided to give an extra little bit of effort. So I increased the fidelity. I used Balsamic just to make a little bit of a nicer or clickable version. That took about an hour. So I guess you can see you can get a lot more work done on the whiteboard than you can on an application. I did a tiny bit of user testing just to show what can be done in a short bit of time. So there's always a reason to throw in some testing. I did a very quick wireframe of the SF Park app as well, and I presented both wireframes randomly to about 30 users, and I asked them some simple questions here. I used Mechanical Turk. Took about an hour. So questions, I 15 viewed each of them. How easy does the app look? Sorry, I used a Likert scale from 0 to 5. So how easy does the app look to use? Average of SF Park looked easier, which is fine. They spent a lot of money. Do you think parking would be easier to find? They preferred my version for that. And do you trust the app makers to balance your needs with their commercial needs? About this 50-50, equal on that. So that's it. Total time was 6 hours plus 1 on presentation. So again, this is just my idea of a video portfolio that can demonstrate a range of your skills in UX and not just the actual end result, such as wireframes. I hope this is better than the first one. I hope you got, or I addressed the feedback you gave. Let me know. We'll see if we can make it better again. Thank you.